Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about how to speak confidently with providers as a medical coder. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. I have been a medical coder for over 10 years. I really love sharing the things that I know with all of you. So I hope you'll take a second, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and at the end of this video helps you, I hope that you will share it. Okay, so let's get started. All right. Now, how do we speak confidently as a medical coder? I've gotten a lot of questions over the last couple of weeks. Blue, I get really nervous when I'm speaking with providers. How do I combat that? Or I'm nervous when I speak with new people. You know, how do I fix that? You know, how do I get to be where I'm really comfortable? I will say this, it is a conscious effort on your part, especially if you feel like you are a shy person or you feel like you're very introvert and you're not very comfortable with speaking publicly or speaking with other people, especially somebody like a provider, because providers can be very intimidating. And that is something that above everything else that you're learning when you're becoming a medical coder, it's this other thing now that you have to learn. But this is a personality thing that you do have to incorporate into your learning. To be a well-rounded, high-caliber medical coder, you've got to have the brains and you've got to have the personality. And the personality as far as communication. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be this gregarious person and just always try to be the life of the party. That's not what I'm saying, because providers respond differently to different types of personalities. So sometimes there's a provider that may need somebody that is gregarious, and then there's another provider that needs somebody that is very calm and very straightforward. And there's a lot of that because providers are very intelligent. As I said, this is one of the reasons that I love this field, is that you get to work around the most intelligent people you will ever meet in your whole life. But there's always a little caveat to that. They are not like the typical personalities that you would expect from like regular coworkers and things like that. These people are highly intelligent and they think differently. Their temperaments are different. And if you are not speaking confidently, they will dismiss you like that. The important thing is to build those relationships and show that you are there to be a team member with them. If you get really lucky, you get to grow with your providers and you get to have that confident experience where you're both learning from each other, because as it has been told to me, providers they don't know anything about coding, and most of them don't. And a lot of times they don't want to know. That's why they have coders. That's what they say. And here's the other thing. We as medical coders, we've never been in medical school, the vast majority of us. So how do we communicate in an effective way where we are showing confidence with somebody who has years of schooling versus ours, where majority of us have just a high school diploma or a GED? I want you to think back to a time when you're talking about your favorite show, right? You're talking about your favorite TV program with a friend, and you're telling them all about the details and all about the characters and their storylines. And oh my gosh, I can't wait till I see this drama unfold. One of my favorite shows is Below Deck Mediterranean. Now I could tell you everything about Hannah. I could tell you about Bugsy. I could tell you about Malia, everybody that's on the boat. I can tell you all about them. And I can speak very confidently because I know about the show. Now, how do I know about the show? Well, obviously for watching it, right? Or I read articles. So all of this knowledge starts to build my confidence. So if somebody was to ask me, hey, Blue, what did you think about Below Deck Mediterranean? Oh my gosh, I really love this show because Captain Sandy and this and this and this. And I can tell you all the details about the show because I've already done my research, right? By watching it, by reading it. It's the same principle that you have to apply to your profession as a medical coder. You have to do your research. You have to know the details. And before you go to a provider and start asking questions, you need to make sure that you've done your homework, because they don't have time for you to be unsure. They do not have time for you to be mumbling either. I've seen coders get really nervous, and when they get around their providers, they start to talk like this, and then they're not really, what did you say? Well, you have to speak clearly, and they have to be able to know that you're there for business, that you've done your homework. Sir, can I ask you a question about this? I have looked this up. I have seen this and I understand it to be this, but this is still not making sense to me. Can you please help me to understand, because I'm trying to make sure that you're getting credit for everything. Oh, okay, here we go. And that's when you start talking, because that provider will know that you have already done your research. And anytime that provider comes to you and says, hey, I have a question for you, and they start asking you a technical question, maybe you don't know the answer right away, you never tell them, I don't know. You always tell them, I need to do a little research on that, and I will get right back to you. You have to have things done in a positive way. The more positive you are, the more you give off that positive energy, the more they will come around, and the easier these relationships will start to develop. The better the relationships, the more confident you will be able to speak, because you're learning your craft. This provider is putting trust in you. Now, that's a part of the reason why when you are starting to be more confident is because the provider is putting trust in you. It's easier to have confidence around somebody who trusts you, right? Versus somebody that you know doesn't trust you. Then you might start to second guess yourself, and you might not be as sure or as confident. You have to override that thinking. You have to get to a point where you're saying, the end goal is this. My goal is to help this provider to get the most credit that they possibly can from what they're documenting. If their documentation is subpar, which sometimes happens when a provider doesn't have access to a high quality, high caliber medical coder, that's what happens. And so when you notice this, because you will notice it in the notes, right? When you're reading those notes, and as you're going along, even if you're brand new, and you start to go along and you start to see that there's some missing details, or some details in there that maybe the provider doesn't know to put in there, or maybe they are repeating a same mistake over and over again. You have to go to them, or right now, because of COVID, perhaps it's in an email, but be very clear, and don't be very lengthy, especially if you have to email like right now. I hate the disconnectedness. It's really, it's driving me nuts. I hate it. But this is what we're living in right now. But I'm just saying, when you are sending emails to providers, do not make it this huge, long thing. Okay? Get to the point. You have to get to the point, and you have to be very clear on what it is that you want. So if you're writing an email and you see that it's 3 paragraphs, you need to boil it down to 1 paragraph. And get to the point of what you're trying to ask, or what needs to be clarified, or what you're trying to convey to the provider. The more confident that you are when you speak, and that is from doing your research and from taking the time to practice your speech, especially if you feel like sometimes if you get really nervous, your voice starts to go really low, then you have to work on looking in the mirror and actively speaking. Even if you have to turn on your camera on your phone, speak to the camera on the phone and be like, okay, this is how I'm going to sound. And then you can watch the playback, because I've had to do that too. I've watched the playback on my show and I'm like, oh, okay, I notice I do this a lot, or I notice I do this a lot, so I'm going to change this up. Progressively, you will always get better, but you have to be confident with the baby steps that you are taking. As long as you are pushing the ball forward, you will always be improving. And that's what you want. You never want to get stagnant. You never want to dig your heels in and say, I'm not doing this. I'm not talking to this provider because of X, Y, Z, or I'm too nervous. I'm too scared. They yelled at me. I'm not going to talk to them again. They are going to yell at you. You are going to have providers that will yell at you. They will insult you. And they will say things that are not very nice. I've had it happen before. And this is before the provider gets to know me. Okay, so sometimes this does happen. And when it does happen, you have to take it in grace, and you have to take it, you have to poise yourself, because that, how you handle them being gruff with you, is going to be sort of their marker on how far they can push you. If you're still able to maintain a very professional attitude, they say, oh, well, she's pretty confident, or he's pretty confident. They know what they're doing. Okay, well, I know I can, come down a little bit, because if they know that they can run over you and say whatever they want to, they're going to do it. I've seen them do it. I've seen many of them do it where they don't want to deal with the coders. How dare you try to talk to me about what I have to do? I've gone to medical school. You don't know anything. You just have a certificate and a high school diploma or a GED. You don't know anything. And it's not until I start to say, okay, and I sort of take this. And my whole thought process is, this is just bluster. That's all that is just they're blustering. And I can take it because I'm confident in what I know. They don't know medical coding. I do. That's my job. I don't know their doctor stuff in specifics, but I do understand it. There's a difference there. Could I go into an operating room and operate on a patient? Heck no. But if you give me the documentation to read, I can be like, okay, I know they performed this procedure. And by going by the rules, I know that they can get this code or they can get that code, or it's this modifier or this diagnosis that's going to be applied to this encounter. That's my knowledge base. Do they have that? No. It's different for them. They're going to look at, oh, okay, well, I see in the book that there's codes for x-rays, there's codes for MRIs. I can pick all of these other things up when I know that those things are included in some procedures. So there's a difference there. This is why a good coder and a good provider can have a perfect marriage, right? They can have that perfect work marriage, right, if you will. I always talk in expressions, but they can have the perfect work marriage where we are a team. We work together. I'm here for you. And as long as you are giving me the documentation as appropriate, I can help you and we can grow together and we can learn together. And it's all about that. That's the attitude and the mentality that you have to have, because it is a very fascinating field. And I am honored every day that I get to work with such intelligent people, because think about it. Anybody else, they would have to be equally as educated. But I can take the education that I've learned and all of the skills, the people skills and the personality skills that I've had to build on my own, and I can apply it to what I'm doing at work. And I can apply it to how I interact with my providers. Because believe me, in the beginning, was I nervous? Was I like, I can't speak. Did I do that? Yes, I did. But it wasn't until I started to think about all of these things and I started to get that interaction that it was a good thing, and I've had many, many times where I'm talking on story time or whatever, and I'm telling you guys these important milestones that I've had with my growth as a medical coder. And I think it's important that every coder has that. But in order to have that, you have to be confident in yourself. And now I have been confident in my abilities to do the coding and to comprehend what I'm reading. But it wasn't until I was put into a situation where I had to start actively communicating with providers that I'm like, okay, this is a whole nother level now. Now I really got to step up my game and understand what I'm reading. It's not enough to understand the coding part. You really have to understand the disease process. And so my advice to start speaking more confidently is to learn your clinic, learn the diseases that come in and out of that clinic, and understand what's going on. Read journals for whatever specialty it is. On the weekend when I'm having my Christmas in July special, when I'm talking about the different specialties, I've done neoplasms, I've talked about ortho, I've talked about gastro, I've talked about respiratory. All of these videos have different specialty links that are talking about that particular specialty where you can go and learn more. I encourage you guys to do that so that when you do have to have those face-to-face encounters, you can speak more confidently when you are talking with your providers, because they're going to know that you've done your homework, you've done your research, you understand. Because sometimes you may get, well, they don't know, they don't understand. And I've heard that more than once. They don't know, they don't understand. Oh, really? Okay. All right. So then when I do start speaking, they're like, oh, well, yeah, she really does know what she's talking about. Yeah. And the reason that I'm able to do that is because I do the research and I do my homework. So you have to do that. It's investing in yourself so that you can get taken seriously when you are speaking. You can get taken seriously as a colleague. You're not dismissed for not knowing. Because even if you don't know, like I said, always say, let me do some research on that and get back to you. Then actively do your research. Okay? Look online, you look through Google, look through whoever, talk to a colleague, get a consult. That's what I talked with my friend. She used to be my boss in my second job. She was my boss, and she's a wonderful mentor. I adore her because she is so smart, and I tell her all the time how intelligent she is, and she's like, oh no, but she knows how to find things. And if any questions I ever have, I only go to her. That's how small I keep the pool. I don't rely on other coders that are around me because I know what their study habits are. And some of them is next to nothing. So I know her study skills are up there and she's constantly doing that. That's why I go to her. So, but it isn't until after I've done all my research and I can't find something, I'm like, well, what do I do, if I can't get with my provider. So that is what I would suggest. If you have a strong accent, I encourage you to work on your accent so that it is very clear, so that your speech is more clear. Because sometimes providers will get very aggravated when they have somebody who has a strong accent that they can't understand. It's not that they don't want to work with that person, but if they can't understand them, it makes it all the more frustrating. And sometimes when you're working with coding, it's not, to them, it's like a foreign language, and because literally it is. It is a foreign language to them, and they don't want to learn. Okay, they don't want to know. Just tell them what are you looking for? What is it that you are trying to ask? What is your question? So this is why I say getting directly to the point with them is key. Sounding clear is key. Being as confident in your speech is key. And if you have to go through looking up how to speak more confidently, things like that, then do that. That is just another investment of time. But these investments that you make will work dividends when you have to do these interactions or when you're doing a class with a provider. Because you may get to a point where you have to do classes with multiple providers. Maybe one day when we are out of this and you have to do in-person in-services, then that is something that you're going to need to make sure that you are prepared for, okay? Because the more engaged and the more confident that you display your talents, the more seriously you will be taken, okay? And this is really important. And I always say all the time that some providers are really hurting because they don't have coders that do that. They don't have coders that take the time to work on themselves personally, because sometimes maybe the coder may think, I'm not the one with the problem, it's the provider. No, you need to look to yourself, because it's not always the other person. That's how I look at it. I look at, what am I bringing to the table? Okay? And if, like I said, if they are gruff with you, just know that that's part of it, and you can work past that as long as you are able to control your response to how they treat you. Because they will respect you more when you can control your response. And when you have all of your evidence, because I was talking, attorney terms. When you have all of your evidence as far as like that you've looked up your question, that you have your proof of emails when you're trying to communicate with this provider, those are the things that you have to do. You have to cover your tracks. You have to make sure that you have those things so that when you're speaking, you can speak confidently. Okay, so it's all about that. Try not to be nervous, whatever you do, because at the end of the day, they put their clothes on one leg at a time, and they're human beings just like you and me. And although some of them have a God complex, some providers do, it doesn't mean that they aren't human. They feel things too. They get upset. They have bad days too. Patients yell at them. Their nurses give them attitude sometimes. They all go through that. So this is why I say when you are their coder, you are there to be their partner. And that should give you some confidence, because you're here to work with this provider. You're their partner. You're supposed to be their backup. You're supposed to have their back. And that's how I feel when I go in there and I talk with my providers. I know I have each and every one of their back. And while they may fuss and fight at the moment, and they may think, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. And then at the end result, when they see things are better, then they're like, oh, well, maybe you were right. That does bolster your confidence as well. But whatever you do, just know that this is part of it. Everybody starts from the first step, okay? And that is what you have to do. But just take a deep breath every time you have to go. Make sure you've done your research so that you can speak confidently, especially when you're asking questions or when you're communicating with them, okay? And don't take whatever they do personally, whatever you do, because they're gonna be times when there's gonna be providers that will not want to deal with you. And sometimes it's not because of anything that you did, it's because of what they've been put through by other coders who were maybe not as engaged as you were trying to be, okay? And that has a lot to do with it too. I've seen providers come to me where they've had bad experiences with their previous coders. And so then when I show up and I'm like one more person, they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with you. You know, I don't deal with coders. You know, they don't know what they're doing. And then I was, oh, okay. So I just sort of listen and hear them out. And then when I start speaking and I start reciting the rules and telling them this and telling them that and telling them different specific things, then they say, okay, well, maybe she does know what she's doing. And that's how I start instilling confidence in me from them, right? I need to be as confident as I possibly can, even when I don't feel like it on the inside, okay? I still need to show it on the outside. I need to show that I am there for a purpose. I have a purpose. Medical coders have a wonderful purpose for what we do. It is a wonderful purpose. Think about it. We are responsible for data. We're responsible for statistics. We are responsible for revenue. At the end of the day, we are responsible to make sure that everything is fair and well streamlined. Okay, that is our purpose. That is our promise, you know. So I'm just saying, that is my advice. But as I've said before, work on your speech if your voice is not clear or if your voice is too low. Make sure that you are speaking up, okay? Because nobody likes to say, huh? What'd you say? Huh? Nobody likes to do that, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you for joining me. I will see y'all again shortly. And if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on that journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.